Hello and welcome to HUD Design. I'm Ash Thorp and I've been working in the creative industry and technology sector as a designer, art director, and concept artist for over 6 years. Some of the films I've worked for include Assassin's Creed, James Bond, Spectre, Ghost in the Shell, Ender's Game, Prometheus, Total Recall, and War for the Planet of the Apes. I've also been the HUD and UI designer for video games such as Lone Echo and Call of Duty Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare. With this course, my goal is to share with you my step-by-step process of designing HUDs for blockbuster films and AAA games. We'll begin by studying the different types of HUDs from video games and film and building an approach based off of a creative brief. From there, we'll move into production phase, where we'll build the different stages of our HUD, designing alternate skins and polishing it to fit the environment it's going to live within. And finally, we'll learn how to composite your finished HUD into beautiful images to present to your client, as well as prepare assets and direction for the animation team. This HUD design course ties directly to the HUD Animation course taught by my longtime colleague Ryan Cashman. Ryan and I have worked on numerous films and video games together using this exact workflow, including ideation, design, refinements, and animation. Using the techniques covered in Ryan's course, you'll learn how to bring your HUD designs from this course to life. If you have an interest in designing HUDs for feature films or AAA games, this is a course that's perfect for you. So sign up now and begin your journey at learnsquared.com.
Welcome to HUD Animation. My name is Ryan Cashman. I'm a technical artist, animator, and creative coder with over 12 years of experience in video games, film, and live events. Some of my recent projects include Horizon Zero Dawn, Total Recall, Ender's Game, Killzone Shadowfall, Assassin's Creed, and many more. My goal as your instructor is to teach you how to turn HUD assets into living and breathing interfaces. To achieve this, we'll explore and learn a wide range of both basic and advanced techniques in Adobe After Effects. We'll begin by getting familiar with the basics of After Effects, working with assets from Photoshop and Illustrator, creating detailed compositions, and adding unique effects. From there, we'll jump into animating luminance maps, powerful black and white animations, which can drive complex-looking transitions and effects. The pipeline we build here will make it easy to quickly edit and add variation to your animations. We then dive deep into a design and begin animating details. You'll learn how to animate text and numbers, and also study the power of shape layers and expressions in After Effects, as well as adding depth to your animations with 3D layers, cameras, and other fun tools. If you have an interest in animating HUDs for feature films or AAA video games, this course will be a perfect solution for you. For those of you looking to design HUDs, my longtime collaborator Ash Thorp has created a course covering that exact subject, and our two courses flow directly into one another. If you're hoping to learn our entire process from ideation to design, refinement, and animation, then both our courses together is what you've been waiting for. So sign up now and begin your journey at learnsquared.com.
Yeah, baby. Let's go. We're live. How's everyone doing today? I hope you guys are doing amazing. I am doing amazing, and I have two amazing guests. And we have two new amazing courses. Hell yeah.
Dang, twinsies.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby.
Hi, baby.
Dude, I was not missing your face because we actually talk almost every day. But we have not been streaming in a while, so
yeah, we haven't streamed in forever.
Yeah, it's been a hot
Cut that
second.
shit called turkey, baby.
Dude, it's been a hot second, but we're back. So we have Ash Thorp. Pretty much anyone who's joining the stream, you guys already know who Ash is, but we also have Ryan Cashman, our new instructor and amazing animator.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk about the two new classes that just dropped right now. They should be available right now. Let me actually refresh my screen, and you guys will be able to see that. Yeah, boom, there we go. You can go buy it now. Yeah, we have two new courses coming up. They're available right now as we are talking, and we are here to actually talk about those two courses, believe it or not. So,
a lot of cool questions coming through on social media and stuff, so we should clarify them here for y'alls.
Yeah, we are here for you guys to ask any questions you want, and we'll answer them in orderly fashion.
Yeah.
So let's maybe start with, typical ordeal and explain who Ash Thorpe is, because everyone knows who you are already, and if you don't know who Ash is, then you're probably living under the rock. But it's time to wake up and learn who Ash is.
Yeah, man. Hanging out
So
with your mom too much. Petting giraffes or something. I don't know what's going on.
yeah, just let's talk briefly. There's always going to be a lost soul that stumbles upon the stream or later on YouTube, and finds out about those two beautiful courses. Like, who is this guy? You know what I
Who's this
mean?
man? This sexy man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk about myself? That's awkward.
Yeah,
I
just
guess I
just
could.
briefly.
Okay.
Just let
Hey,
everyone know what's
hey,
up.
hey everybody. You bunch of lovelies. I'm an overworking designer. Not joking. No, my name is Ash Thorpe. I've been working in the feature film and the AAA game industry for quite some time now. Thinking like it's like almost 8 years now as a freelancer. I started working at a studio called Prologue. And when I went freelance, I started working on a bunch of movies and actually started working with Ryan on these movies as a freelancer. And the movies are crazy. Worked on a lot of them. There's just a ton. There's like Ghost in the Shell, Assassin's Creed. If you see the teaser, you can see all the different types of work we've done. Primarily, when I got started, I was just a designer working in like technology and HUD and UI kind of stuff. And I've since then I've branched off into different things, but I'm primarily known in my career as doing this kind of stuff. So this kind of work, design and HUD stuff. So, but yeah, so that's me. I've been jamming for a long time and doing this for a long time. And what you're gonna get out of this class is like an accumulation of probably like 6 years of knowledge of this just things that I've learned. The thing with this kind of stuff is that you can't really learn it yet because there's no real classes on it. So the cool thing about this is like this is a direct source to what we do and how we do it in the professional setting, which is the most realistic. And I'm 100% believer in like doing project-based learning because it's applicable learning, which is all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so this class and Ryan's class is 100% focused on that. So usable knowledge from people that actually do the actual work. I used to hate it when I was in like college or school, and I'm like, man, what the hell do you do? When I talk to the teacher, they're like, oh, I'm just a teacher. I'm like, man, I don't know about that. I don't want to learn from you. I want to learn from like George Lucas or something, So yeah.
Yeah.
So that was me being a turd in school. So yeah.
Dude, you know what's funny? It's like anytime I ask you, like every now and then you say, dude, I just wrapped up this project. I'm taking a huge time off, gonna focus on personal work.
So
And then like a
stupid.
week later, it's like, hey, that thing we wanted to talk about? I don't have time. I just picked up like 7 other projects.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just like my life. I feel like there's only so much time, and I love what I do, and I've forged a career for myself, and I really I love spending time designing and working. So, and it's just like it's hard for me to say no to jobs, that's for sure. And I love working, and it's just these are just things that I address in the class. We'll get into details obviously when we
Yeah,
go through
yeah, of
lessons and
course,
stuff,
of
but
course.
but yeah, I know absolutely, and yeah, I have a total problem with that. 100% a problem with taking breaks and taking time off. It's just because like there's so much to learn and so little to do, and we're in the
Yeah,
renaissance now with art. Everybody's connected, and there's so much knowledge to be had, and it's just an amazing time to be an artist. We're
super
incredibly
easy to
lucky.
learn,
Yeah.
including this beautiful place. Ryan, let's talk about you as well. Let's introduce you specifically because I don't think, I'm hoping a lot of people already know you, and I'm pretty sure they know you from the work you've done with Ash, because you guys have done. I don't know how many projects you guys done together.
Oh gosh,
Like
that's hard to say. At least 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah, I think 4 or 5, yeah,
like
projects.
major ones, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, let's introduce you. Let's get our audience familiar with who you are. Just briefly, you know, talk about yourself.
Yeah. Well, my name's Ryan Cashman. I am an animator and a technical artist. Gosh, I've been freelancing, kind of in the games and film in TV industry for probably 10 or 12 years now. Um, yeah, I'd been a freelancer for a while. When I met Ash, we were working on a project at Sony at the time. And yeah, like we really hit it off. Like, I was primarily kind of like an animator, compositor, sort of 2D, 3D jack of all trades. Ash came in with these just like incredible design skills. And yeah, we like really hit it off where he was just like, pumping out these amazing assets. I'd take him into After Effects and just start, running wild with them. And yeah, we started trying out some really awesome stuff. And, from there, we made that jump to really lucky to be able to work on a couple of super cool movies together. And gosh, yeah, just been freelancing ever since, and just really fortunate to be able to get to do this type of work that is like super enjoyable. It's creative, but when you start getting to the animation side, it's also like very technical. So you're just a lot of it starts coming down to like learning how to manage complexity, how to like have these crazy ideas, and then like how do you pull this off in a reasonable amount of time without like totally losing your mind, So trying to show like all these techniques for how you can start bringing like a little bit more of a procedural mindset to the way you break these down and start making them move around. Start thinking about ways that you can swap out assets and generating new assets to kind of supplement what's already there. Just like a lot of, cool like little projects and techniques that I've picked up over the years that I find are really useful that hopefully will give you a really nice foundation that you can start building on, because it's really geared towards people that, are already like really interested in design. Maybe you've taken Ash's course and you want to start like bringing this stuff to life. And that's really where it just kind of picks up, and it kind of teaches you, all the basics of After Effects, how to get your assets in there, how to start moving them around. And then yeah, we start diving into expressions and building like cool little control rigs so you can, make these things move and change form with just a handful of sliders instead of need to keyframe every little detail. Because if you start doing that, like I said, you're going to get really bogged down. So yeah, hopefully people find it interesting and take something away from it. Yeah, no, really excited to get this out there.
Yeah, I know something about keyframing. I have, when I was learning After Effects for the first time, it was true keyframe. It's like, oh my god, if I would do everything like that, I would just lose my mind,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess it's just I guess it's the same to animation. When it comes down to like character animation, stuff like that. There's something beautiful about doing keyframes. I guess if you're like doing work similar to what Ghibli makes, specifically character animation, where you can have those nuances, those little frame by frame imperfections,
Yeah.
But when it comes to like a UI stuff, that's a little different story.
Yeah, we know some people that do a lot of keyframing. I think you could do a bit of mix, but at the same time, like what Ryan does is really great with using expressions and sliders basically to like augment things so you can make quick changes if necessary, which definitely is a smart move, because when you're working in this stuff, there's just constant changes and stuff. So all the way from the design phase through like, because you're like, oh, the design looks great. Okay, now let's put it over a picture, and like, oh, it looks weird there, and blah, blah, blah. And you got to shrink things down and blah, 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 and timing's got to shift and all that fun stuff. So
yeah.
Yeah, fun stuff.
So before we go, because the next thing I would want to talk about is, your guys' goal for students to, to explore while taking the class, and, maybe some hints on why you should be taking this class. I just wanted to briefly touch upon the idea of those two courses almost being together but separate, One of the things that we've introduced, this is for the first time actually with Learn Squared, we have two classes that you can take all together, almost like a one prolonged course taught by two teachers, two world-class teachers, I should say. Or you can take them separately and then learn completely two different things without needing one or another. It's a very interesting thing, because for one, we can what we offer here is we have your course, Ash, from which you're gonna learn how to design the HUD, and then we have a follow-up course, which is Ryan's course, which is HUD Animation. But you can also take Ryan's class separately, just using your own assets, just use, because I'm pretty certain there are people that already know more or less the workflows that you, Ash, are using.
Yeah.
Or
If
they're
you've taken
built.
my prior classes, then yeah, you'll get an idea of how things work.
Yeah, and some people work differently as well, and they might have
How dare they?
oh my God, they might have a different approach with with the, I guess, the format of the end result being similar because after all we're gonna have you know After Effects and Illustrator files in most cases. You can take those, plug into your HUD Animation class, and go from there as well. So I just wanted to make sure that we are aware of that. So with that being said, let's maybe talk about the classes themselves. What kind of goals we want to have for both. What students will be able to learn. I guess the most common question almost all classes we release have is like, is it for a beginner? Is it for advanced? I think we can answer that straight away, right?
Yeah. For me, and I won't answer for Ryan because I haven't taken his class yet. But I think what we designed was, the whole idea was to show the entire world, full transparency, how Ryan and I have worked on all these films together, and they're designed to work for anybody of any skill set. For my class specifically, anybody with any type of skill can come in here and take this class, I think, and take away from this class an exceptional amount of new knowledge regarding this subject. And that was the goal, really. My goal with this class was to kind of remove a whole barrier of the elitism and like learning stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like I wanted it to be like anybody can take it, anybody could learn something new from it, and then potentially, if you really accelerate in this and you really care and you really focus on it, like you could legitimately go make a career out of this, because this is like an emerging field in the design industry and the future tech world, not only for video games and film and stuff, but like it's legit, like where people are trying to hire people in this kind of capacity and this kind of skill set all over the place. Everything from like Netflix to Apple to Amazon. I mean, it's a pretty unique thing. So you can take this knowledge and apply it to those things, but it's designed for everybody. At least that was my biggest, most important approach for making this class.
Yeah, and every class we release, I watch over just to see, obviously, to experience it and know what the hell we were releasing. But also just I'm always genuinely interested. Obviously, having a new class, I want to make sure that it is the best for the users or for our community. And I've been watching it. It's so straightforward, dude. I remember taking your first class when I was your apprentice.
Yeah, that's the first class I ever made. Yeah.
And this one is so much better done already. It's your third course that's being released, and yeah, I feel like if I've never have done HUD design or HUD in general, and I was always would be wondering, like, I play my favorite video games, and whether it's like a Call of Duty or The Last of Us or whatever, and I see all those icons floating and elements on the screen, and I wonder, like, how the hell is this working? How is this being designed? It's so easy to get lost in technicalities and like the magic of things that are so difficult to make. But I feel this course sort of almost breaks it down to such an elementary level where, whether you've never done it or you've done this before, you're going to get something out of it, especially if you've never done HUD. Like, you can take this course and learn how to do it. And obviously, design sense and a lot of like originality will come over time. That has to be stated, that that's something you learn and develop for yourself over a period of time. But
Absolutely.
The workflow, almost the bulletproof workflow techniques, approaches that you present, I think are the best in the industry, and it kind of shows the amount of projects you've been working on. And I know some behind the closed door stuff that we obviously cannot talk about. That is just so fucking mind blowing. that you're working on, that shows that
Yeah.
that this is it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and what is even more fascinating is the HUD animation part as well. With Ryan, and I've discovered you, Ryan, through Ash specifically, because I would always ask Ash questions like, he has those amazing things in his portfolio, and there's a lot of like little things that Ash likes to work with other people in order to have it done. And you are like one of the top on the list when it comes to, making good stuff look even better because it's moving.
Yeah. Ryan's like, if I was a body, he would be my right side. I'd be the left side. And not only do I love working with Ryan because he's just awesome and he's incredibly talented, but it's also like, the way that films and these things work, they're so rapid and they're so insane on the time that it takes a team, it takes a family, a group of people to establish and build these things out. And it's and who you choose to work with really defines the final outcome. Yeah. I just wanted to just mention that because that's really important, It's like who you work with and how you work with that person defines the outcome of the final piece. And it's a testament to how Ryan and I work together because of all the projects we've done together. So
yeah, they look freaking amazing. And so if you need any convincing if that's worth your time and money, like just look at whatever is in the trailer or on Ryan's website or Ash's website, and you will know it for yourself. Just the amount of projects you guys done together or separately, it just shows. But let's talk about the HUD animation. What do you, Ryan? What are the goals you think you have for students there, and what do you expect students to the takeaway from the course itself?
Well, yeah. Well, my course is really geared towards people that have some design experience. So either people that have taken the Ash's course ahead of time, the design half of it, or maybe folks that have already been designing these screens in Illustrator and Photoshop, and they're interested in like learning how to start bringing them to life and animating them and kind of taking them to the next level. So it kind of starts out just with like the basics of kind of starting in Photoshop and Illustrator, how you can sort of prep your files and sort of what to expect when you first import them into After Effects, how to set up your compositions, how to deal with your layers, all the real basic stuff of just like setting up and managing your project, making sure you kind of have all your ducks in a row before you really dive in. Then we run through some, real basic animation techniques. We talk about keyframing, moving layers around. We like the first project is it's pretty fun, but also pretty basic. Like we're just using, a handful of these effects and keyframe animations to build a really cool ambient screen. So just picking one of your designs, breaking out the layers, just kind of creating a really cool loop, to get our feet wet. From there, we dive into mats and channels. And this is some really powerful stuff that carries forwards. Is like, starting to think in terms of like luminance channels and like using textures to start driving your animations and transitions. So we dive pretty deep into that, and it's really powerful stuff that carries forward especially when you start getting into some of the crazier plugins like Plexus and Form in particular and stuff. And then we get into expressions and some like basic rigging and just like a lot of like handy ways that you can start, basically like creating little animation rigs for your UI elements and like really drilling down into these details and finding ways that we can animate them. Again, that's very organized and flexible, so we're not getting completely bogged down by lots of keyframes. And if some of these art assets end up changing, we're able to swap things out and like modify the design even after we've started to animate it. So, it's just a lot of like little projects showing off, practical real world examples of stuff that's worked for me in the past. And hopefully it's stuff that you can then build on in the future with your own designs, And it's, it's really designed, again, for people that haven't really animated much, but have been working with these designs and are really interested in kind of taking them to that next step.
Yeah, it's very methodical, straightforward, pick it up and run with it, approach.
Usable knowledge,
very
not
usable
theoretical.
knowledge.
It's like knowledge we got from like having to work on stuff until 3 or 4 in the morning and having to figure it out fast,
Yeah.
working robustly and then, failing constantly, but then also succeeding constantly. Yeah. So
No,
Yeah, and
guys.
techniques and stuff along the way. So
setting things up
applicable
to work in
knowledge.
that iterative approach. We were going back and
Yeah.
it's constantly changing and improving
Yeah.
with each pass.
Yeah.
One of the most frustrating things about learning new stuff I always find is, uh, getting the right material to learn from. Because you guys know it. Like, Ash, you've been learning recently Redshift, for instance, right? I mean, everything, pretty much everything, all the
Yeah.
software that's out there.
Everything I
Um,
see.
but the most frustrating part about learning new software is like finding the right material, like
Yeah.
searching for it and then
Or
making
what
sure that
button does what.
yeah, what brushes you use, all that stuff. But just the idea of finding the material that is laid out in the proper way, so not only you're learning like a proven technique that works in the industry, and it's been used in major productions, so you know 100% that what is in the class itself is the proper stuff. It's like the proper shit. But also just like the way it's laid out, so it's not confusing. I had this debate, and we talked about it before. Thinking about maybe alternating from 3ds Max and looking for different 3D software, and everyone I asked for said, "Yeah, go learn Blender."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's really hard to find the proper Eve though. It's really hard. It's really hard to find proper material to learn.
Yeah.
And you just experiment, find different materials in different places. Some of them free, some of them
I
paid.
hate that. I hate it.
And the worst thing about
Like
it
YouTube,
is,
dude.
yeah,
Mining for YouTube videos. Yeah.
I mean, you can find gems like every now and then, but it's so rare, and you're gonna waste so much time finding stuff that is just unusable, and that's the part that has always been most frustrating to me. And Ash, you've been with the company, like you started the company with me, and so like we always had this goal of making sure that whatever is being taught is, it's not only something that is approachable, but just like removes that frustration of searching for the right stuff, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting that information, so, getting that information that is applicable and usable and stuff that like will make sense. And, it's like, for me, it's all about when I learn something, I want to learn it from the best person that knows the thing, that actually uses it. Like, I can't stand watching something from somebody who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. I'm like, oh man. And usually it's like people are talking theory, It's like, imagine like a 6-year-old guy that's never boxed talking about like how to throw a punch. You're like, dude, get the hell out of here.
You mean like all of the YouTube comments?
Like, yeah, basically like 90% of YouTube, but there's some great stuff on there, but it's really hard to find. And usually you have to pay for it. And then when you pay for it, like there's a threshold, because like it's a weird thing now. We just think everything should be free online. It's just kind of this weird thing, because there's a lot of value on there. But the real true good value that I found is like when you pay for somebody that's professional to teach you something professionally, which has always been like, for me, the best way to learn something fast. It depends. Like I'll ask you this, if you're watching this, you're like, oh no, I'm on the fence. It's like, hey, do you want to learn this or not? And if you don't, then don't do it. If you do, then this is the thing for you. Like if you feel like this is something that you're curious about, or you like, I get a lot of people that email me like, oh, I'm in a rut, or I want to do this, like a new career, or I don't like this thing, or I'm curious about what you do and how you do it. And like literally, like you couldn't have asked for, like, it's like a perfect time for you, because this is exactly it. And you're learning direct source too. And I think like the way that I've broken down my class is to really kind of focus on a lot of common questions. Like Momo and I, we really put a lot of time and consideration. And this was kind of the first class that we kind of like, I don't know, pioneered this idea of the way that this class works and kind of put it into the other classes, which I feel is really successful. Just the way that it's formatted and works, like Mache was talking about it earlier. It's like when we first launched Learn Squared and we launched these classes, like it was kind of like Wild Wild West style. Like we just kind of did the best we could.
Wing it.
Winged it to get our information out. But we realized and learned from you guys how to make a better class from like taking your feedback and making iterative changes as we go through it, and using that kind of that knowledge and making sure that it's working well. And so that's kind of that's been the flow for this class, and then the flow for Ryan's as well. It's like, I go into depth on like common questions and like things that I find from people and like how to answer them, and not just like, hey, what buttons to push, but primarily like how to think and how to think at a high level, so that you can take this knowledge, and it doesn't matter. It could be, you could literally like copy me and do like what I'm doing, or you could think on your own because I give you those tools to make your own individual work and build out like your own thing and completely be your own self. And I talk a little bit about all that stuff too, applicable knowledge, career stuff, all those kind of fun things too. So like just tons of knowledge, years of it compacted into like an experience. So
yeah, I think it's important to say that, everything that is being taught by people like yourself and Ryan it's not just, whatever the amount of minutes or hours that is in the content. It's that plus years and years of experience making mistakes, trying different things and making them not work, failing, repeating, spending endless hours and nights to learn that stuff, and then eventually coming up with the bulletproof workflow, using the right software that does not crash on you all the time, finding the ways, the best and the most efficient ways of using that stuff to create like visually striking designs. And what I'm going to say about those two classes is, Ash, there's always this magical aura about you, and also Ryan, like when I look at your guys' work, especially when you guys work together, it's like, man, it's just so beautiful. And then when I dive in to learn how the whole thing was done, it's like, oh,
yeah.
It's not hard at all. It's just like, you just have to make the right decisions, you just have to pick the right stuff and go with it. But it's really not that difficult. And I think that's the one of the beauties about, those two courses. It's just like, they're very straightforward, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not like learning how to draw anatomy or something, Like there's a different bridge between those learning curves. There's learning curves to everything. But the curve for this, in comparison to say like learning how to draw like proficiently, there's a difference there, obviously. Yeah. And I always consider these classes to be like a time machine. You guys remember this when I'd talk about all the time when I'd stream and talk about these things, is that these classes, if you want to, you can get in a fucking time machine, a bubble, and you could jump in there and you could just go right to you can skip over like 5 or 6 years of hardships or whatever, learn all those things, start from there, and then leapfrog and take all that knowledge and work and go beyond, and it's almost like, playing video games. You have that cheat code to like jump over the world or whatever, like in Mario or something. It's like the same kind of idea. And it's not necessarily cheating in the sense in the way I look at it, because I would do this instantly if people could show me exactly what I was trying to do. But it gets you to the end point where you want to go, and then you can go from there and blossom and build out your own things, And yeah, that's just another thing that I think is really important to bring up, is like, it's all about that progression. Yeah. And using this as a tool to accelerate yourself in your abilities to like build a career, support your family or yourself, make a living, all these kind of things, so fight that, that starving artist bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's been beaten to the ground, the idea of starving artists and motivation and stuff like that. The truth of the matter is, if you want to learn and you want to work in this industry and you're passionate about it, like, stop questioning yourself, just start doing, like literally start doing, and it's just gonna come together.
100%. Yeah. Almost always does.
Always.
You're doing it. Yeah.
Always 100%. Cool. I think we should talk about briefly, about the lessons themselves. Yeah. And then we'll jump into QA. So obviously we'll start with you, Ash, and because it's just like, design then animation.
Linear.
Yeah, it will be the easiest way to explain the whole workflow.
Awesome. So the first lesson of HUD design is primarily focused around just getting your mind in this space. It's kind of if you've never done this before, it's kind of good to get into it in that kind of capacity, where I just talk a lot about just tips and tricks and things and how I work. A lot of the common questions over the years, I've accumulated like just hundreds of questions that come through. And we also, Momo, myself, and the rest of the Learn Squared team have been using like Slack and getting all that data mining, basically old school way, by asking you guys questions and seeing what questions we need to answer in these classes. So I address all these questions, these random ones that will come up through the process and kind of explain things. And so the beginning of it is just breaking down the stages of components, sketching, thinking about ideas, how to process ideas, how to process, like concepts, things that come in from the client, how to take these words and then turn them into actual like sketches that you're then going to take into lesson 2, which is what I would call like HUD modules. And the idea with this is to build out, and if you're familiar with my classes, you're going to know exactly what I mean by asset army. It's basically, if you're building things, you're going to kind of want to build a lot of little pieces. When I was a kid, I used to play with Legos. That was like my favorite toy. And so I think I've moved that over to like Illustrator and building out stuff in design, because like the whole idea of taking things and having modular systems of different designs that you can add value to, or you can like, you make a certain design and you go, well, this is going to mean like life, and this one's going to mean blah, blah, blah. And then you put them all together. And as long as it's supporting the design, which I talk about in lesson 1, it's going to come into like a whole HUD module. And these lessons, like the first one's 3 hours. The second one's 3 hours too. Like they're pretty long and intensive in regards to just like overall lessons. But I try to cover everything basically, so that you wouldn't have any questions basically. And so that's what the lesson 2 is all about, is like building these things out, taking your sketches and your ideation and your whole concept in the beginning, and then moving that into the programs, which is like Illustrator and stuff. And in Illustrator, I'm not using anything too complex. I'm using all the basic stuff. And, another thing that I'd always say is like complexity is many simple things combined. And that's what these classes are. Lesson 3 is all about creating HUD skins. And what I mean by this is you take all your illustration stuff and you bring it into Photoshop, and you start to like, class it up. It's like, if it was the equivalent of going out on the night of the town, this is when you put the makeup on, to look good, put that mean coat on, you want to be classy. So you're going out to the club, having a good time. So you're just classing up your HUD, getting it all delicious looking, for all the peeps, so sharing it with your clients and getting everything ready. So that's really, if there's a leap. So in the lesson 1, sketching ideation, lesson 2 is building out like asset armies, all these different things, putting them all together, all the modules, the modes, different settings, and then taking all of that in Illustrator, taking it all in Photoshop, getting all that ready, cleaning it up, getting it all like nice and all that good stuff. And then lesson 4 is the final lesson, where you take all this stuff, refine it down, present it, how to present it, how I present my work, how I also like get my files ready, file handoffs. This is gonna like where it connects right to Ryan's class, where I'm like, hey, I'm thinking this does that, and that's how this works, and maybe this does that this time, and blah, blah, blah. And this is also a point, like if you decide to take both classes and do both at the same time, and like do this in your career where you're gonna handle both parts, which is design and animation, this is also a really important part, because like my biggest thing is you don't want to go into animation until you have a design set up,
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to have a foundation that you can then animate from there. So, and this is good for you, even if you're doing it by yourself. This is a benchmark where you go like, this is what I'm going to do here. This is how I'm going to do it, and blah, blah, blah. So, and the final concepts is basically just like, boom, you're in the club, just doing sick moves in the club. And everybody is like circling around you like, oh,
hell yeah. And then once you're like in the crescendo, Ryan steps in.
Dude, Ryan, like, I'm doing a head spin. I do like a air flare. I jump and I high five Ryan. He comes in and does a triple head spin.
Triple dipple.
Yep.
Triple dipple. Yeah.
So yeah, change of the guard, man. And let's talk about Ryan's course now. Okay, let's just go over, some of the concepts you're explaining in the lessons, and the breakdown of what people can expect by taking each of those.
Yeah, so like we start out with the After Effects basics. So we kind of pick up where Ash leaves off. We have, a folder full of these really cool, exciting designs. And we start kind of using those to wrap our heads around, what After Effects is all about. So we start importing assets, seeing how they come into After Effects. We start talking about, the concept of compositions, and then how that relates to what you have coming out of Illustrator and Photoshop. We spend a little time to kind of tweak our source files a little bit more before bringing them into After Effects. Kind of like learn about some like a little more technical stuff before we get into animation, and that's kind of like one of the big differences between these two courses. Is like when you start getting into animation, things start getting a lot more technical pretty quickly. So. So yeah, we're kind of prepping for that. We're laying a nice foundation about After Effects. We're bringing in these designs. We're taking a look at them, and then we're getting prepared for the next step. So like when we get into the next lesson, we start talking about working with mats and channels and how we can animate these. So you're probably pretty familiar with them from earlier, like using masks and stuff in Illustrator and Photoshop. But when you come into After Effects, they start taking on like, an entire new meaning because you're dealing with time and movement as well. So we start covering some of that stuff. And then, from there, we start getting into even more advanced techniques. So when we get into the third lesson, now we're starting to talk about working with expressions and shape layers and stuff, as well as numbers and text, which is a really important and powerful part of HUD and GUI designs, is working with animated text and numbers. So we dive pretty deep into that for how you can start really controlling those and getting some pretty cool readouts and data inside of your designs that's actually like moving and changing with your animation. So that's really cool too. And then from there, we get into finishing touches. So like just some more like another group of like interesting techniques. We start talking about like using depth of field and post effects, and start working with some more 3D layers and cameras, and we're really preparing stuff for these like final output renders. So yeah, like really exciting stuff. It's geared again towards like designers, and in the lessons, things have a very like sci-fi aesthetic. We're like using designs from Ash's course, which are like, of course, these like beautiful kind of sci-fi designs. But the techniques in the courses would actually apply to a variety of visual styles as well. So these are things that I've used on a lot of these pretty prominent like sci-fi pieces, but I've also used them for all sorts of different aesthetics and even animation purposes. So hopefully, kind of the goal was to touch on, just like every piece of the process, like starting from just the design itself, how we get it into the software, and then just kind of every step along the way, a little, just kind of showing this path that I've used over the years, just this, accumulation of knowledge and techniques that I've been applying to projects that have kind of got me through this crazy freelance world. So, kind of really excited to package this up and pass it on to people.
Yeah.
And hopefully they find it interesting and useful, and they're able to build on it. And
That's the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is to make you guys better, so you guys influence us too, and just like creates a cycle,
Yeah, and I loved your metaphor about Legos earlier too, because that's very much how I like to approach this stuff too, where it's like thinking modularly, thinking procedurally, thinking how you can start with these small pieces and fit them together to scale up into something really complex and beautiful.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's how we've worked this whole time. We're like, how can we take this simple thing and like accelerate it? And how can we add all those complexities, and simple solutions, but with a complex ending? It's like, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah, 100%.
Before we jump into QA, because there's a ton of questions.
Yeah, baby. Ask those questions, guys. Ask them now.
I just gonna reiterate the fact, and the one thing I love about this all is, how straightforward. It's almost like a linear, straightforward progression. It's almost like, in video games, you in the RPG video games, you start and you build your character and it levels up. It's exactly how it works here. You get those all pieces that you need to have in order to progress in a linear fashion, and you never get lost. And the greatest part about that is it's not just only how to use software, but also like how to think about using software as well. So it's not just like, this is how this works and this is how that works, but also, the reasons why you are using specific tools in the first place, the reason why you are doing certain things in a certain way, where you start with one thing and follow it up with another that might seem like not a linear progression thing, but it's laying foundation for what's coming, So this is pretty important. And of course, as you, Ryan, mentioned, you don't need Ash's class specifically to start your course as well. You can do it with your own assets as well, and that's a beautiful thing too.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Let's jump into QA. There's a bunch of questions here to be answered. Thanks a lot for those guys. And of course, first one is not surprising. No mentorship.
Yeah. And Ryan, are you doing mentorship or no?
It's not planned at this time, but
yeah. So let me clarify this, because based on the conversations we had so far, and you guys can confirm or deny, obviously.
Sure.
The mentorships are in plans, but due to the nature of your guys' busy schedules, like, we just wanted to make sure we can release that stuff, so it does not wait for the better times when Ash and Ryan are not busy.
Yeah, which is very rare.
Yeah. So the mentorships are planned, as well as apprenticeships. Matter of fact, I am planning to be apprentice for both of those classes. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
But just rest assured that that's what's going on. It's a different release than our usual releases as well. We're trying to sort of always make sure that we are delivering the best content and all the options we can. But also, I want to be sure that you guys can take advantage and start, learning that stuff without waiting like for Ash and Ryan to open up mentorships and have that time for you, because this can happen the next month or in 2 months, who knows, right? But at least you already have the material you can work with and prepare for. So that would be
also
answer.
The goal with these classes to make them so bulletproof that you don't need to hold my hand the whole time, via mentorship. So, and for me at least, that was one of the goals. So it could survive and you could thrive in it. There's no better way to learn than directly from the person in a mentorship format. That's 100% true. The biggest problem, obviously, is that we're busy. We have families and lives and personal lives and hundreds of different things that we got going on. And so I definitely, for me personally, to reiterate, I definitely love doing mentorships. I love teaching people. I love being a part of their journey. And I definitely see it possibly happening in the near future. It's just a matter of making it happen. But we wanted to get the class out sooner than later, rather than oh, I think I could do this later. And it's 6 months later or something happens where I won't be able to. And then you guys are all missing out on the class. And probably a lot of you in the chat have been waiting a long time for this class to drop. So here it is. So yeah. Good times.
Yep.
Learn it up.
There's few questions. There are a few questions that are more general. I'll start maybe with answering or getting us to answer questions that are specifically related to the courses,
Sure.
And then after that we can also answer those more general ones. I think the next one is more directed to Ryan, but we'll see. I'm interested in real-time workflow. I've made UI elements for interactive before, and I feel like After Effects is clunky way to make stuff. Is it really the best option for real-time animation?
Well, it does somewhat depend. You can, with expressions, you are able to do a lot of stuff almost in real time, they're in the timeline. But yeah, After Effects is definitely primarily geared toward pre-rendered stuff and things that would perhaps have a little bit more detail than you would be doing in real time, or maybe if you're pre-rendering elements that you would then be taking into something like Unity and then animating further. So I would say, yeah, it is true there are some limitations to its real-time capabilities, but it's also extremely fast to work in and very powerful. So if you set up some clever expressions, and depending on what your design is and what you need to do with it, you are able to do a surprising amount of stuff like very rapidly in the timeline, and then render it out to a variety of formats that are then digestible in other applications or further compositing elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it all depends, man. It all depends.
It is. It's a very powerful tool, though. It does a lot of things, but
Yeah,
it does. It kind of depends what your end goal is.
Sure.
it's crazy how powerful it is, though. If you're just like curious about it, just like watch Andrew Kramer's like YouTube videos or something like to see its capacity like to the max.
Yeah, Andrew Kramer is kind of his stuff is really interesting, and all he uses mostly is After Effects. And I guess the follow-up question to that, Ryan, would be, why did you decide not to include Cinema 4D lectures into the course?
We decided to kind of close that door when we were kind of going back and forth and shaping the course. We really decided to narrow the scope to just After Effects and kind of like focus like a laser on this one application. Although, I would say Cinema 4D is definitely part of the overall ecosystem, but is not expressly taught in this course, although what you learn in this course could very easily be applied to working with assets from Cinema 4D. So everything we cover about working with mats and channels and luminance and pre-compositions, all of this stuff works great with things like object buffers and luminance renders coming out of Cinema 4D, and I've absolutely used them in that way. But yeah, just for the sake of kind of boxing things in and keeping the course focused, we decided to stay focused solely on After Effects.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with just this too. Like, it's insane the amount of. I know people that literally have like careers that just work primarily only in this and make a good living, and they make awesome art. So
yeah, that's a big thing. Is After Effects really has been a tried and true moneymaker throughout my entire career.
It's amazing.
It has kind of been the one centerpiece since the very beginning, and like other applications have come and gone. But yeah, After Effects has really hung in there and changed and improved with the times. And yeah, it's still just doing it.
My buddy Chris says it perfectly. He calls it Photoshop with wheels. It's like it's everything that you wanted to do in Photoshop. Because I actually started to migrate over to After Effects like a lot more in everything I do rather than Photoshop. Photoshop's amazing for certain things, but like After Effects offers so many different other opportunities for like expansion of your work. And it just, when you're there, you're already kind of like halfway to the animation, which is great too. So yeah, I wouldn't think about it like, you got to include cinema as well. And then if you're going to say that now, it's like, well, then why don't you include 3D Coat and then World Creator and then Substance Painter and then make a scan Quixel. And like, it's just a slippery slope. It's like, what's the point? Because Cinema 4D in and of itself is insanely powerful. And that's like, to include that in here might be ridiculous, honestly, like too much for people. So, because it's already enough for these two, like we're using 3 programs through the 2 courses. We're using Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe After Effects.
Yeah, I think
that ecosystem's insane as it is.
I think I'll add to that and say, I don't know if it's a trend right now, or is it just overall thinking that you need to learn all the new stuff all the time. Ash, we've been talking about this many times privately, but also on streams, on the past streams, the importance of learning new software and understanding how the industry is moving forward with the technology, with software and hardware. That is really important. But I think we should not lose lose our attention and sort of like spread it thin by just learning new stuff, learning new software all the time. Because in most cases, you literally just need to know 2 or 3 things.
Yeah, and be clever about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was always surprised, and also just, when I looked at both of those classes, but also, Ash, when I met you for the first time, it was always surprising to me how simple your workflows were in terms of like your approach. I don't use this or that. I just use this specifically. It works perfectly, I remember when we released your first course, and I think you were still working on your old Mac, like 5-year-old.
It's like 14-year-old Mac Pro.
Like, what?
Like, Dude, it was like made by the guy that made the Ten Commandments. Moses made my Mac. Sick, bro. I think it was sick.
But
Got the
instead of
arc
like
in
10
there.
commandments, it was just like ones and zeros, binary codes that you had to
Dude,
read and
he
type
chiseled
in.
it. I had to feel it like Braille. I was like, ooh. Yeah, my
Yeah.
hand was sore at the end of the workday for sure. But no, yeah, I was using like an old shit computer, and I've been working in the industry for a long time. I just didn't care about all those other distractions, and I was like avoiding adding complexity to my life because I know it's like once you do that, it's a downhill spiral, which I'm currently in. I have 3 computers, and I learned knowing like 20, 25 different programs, which is ridiculous. But
Yeah, but you know what's
yeah,
funny? You learn all that stuff, but I still see you using just 2 most of the time. Like 90% of the time, it's just 2
yeah.
pieces of software that
You
you're
haven't seen the
using.
latest hotness, bro. You haven't
I
seen that
know,
latest
I know, I
hotness.
know, I know, I know, I know, I know.
Yeah, I know 100% though. But it's true. Like you can stay in these ecosystems and really be proficient. And like I said, like a good example is both my career and Ryan's career, but at the same time, like other prolific people, like even like Mache uses Photoshop in like an insane way, or Andrew Kramer uses Adobe After Effects like in an insane way, where you're like, no way, that was made with like Nuke and all blah blah blah, and you did the sim in Houdini and this. He's like, no, I just use like noise deformer, I tracked the camera, and then bam, After Effects made that science.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'll tell you, past 2 major projects that I've been working on were like just only Photoshop.
Yeah.
It's
There you
it's
go.
crazy like that. So
Photoshop's powerful.
yeah,
And it's all
it
in the
is.
user too, and how you take that information and go with it. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Again, like it circles back perfectly to what we were saying before. It's packing all that experience from from the failures and experiences of past how many years you guys been in industry, and learning, okay, like I can try all of those things that people are raving about, but if I'm smart with my time and I use just those 2 pieces of software, or I approach my work with this specific workflow that I've experienced and I know works for the industry really well, I'm super proficient about it, then boom, I'm just saving ton of time. I think
Yep.
I'll add to it as well that one of the things that pretty much every artist that I know that learns and learns and works and becomes better in the craft learns that time becomes more valuable than money over time. The more experience you have, the better jobs you pick up, the more you value your time versus money. And so
Yeah.
having those investments where, hey, I can invest in learning this, instead of spending a day or 2 of finding cheaper or free alternatives. It's like that makes no sense anymore. The amount of time you're going to spend searching and trying to learn something else is, if you translate that to now having that time for doing work instead, you'll be on the losing end basically.
Yep.
And that's something you learn pretty quickly working in this industry. Okay.
Sink or swim.
Yep, exactly. Next question is to you, Ash, I think. Someone said, I already own Ash's first course. It seems very
Yeah.
similar. Is what way does the first part differ?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a totally valid one, right? Because it's kind of in the same kind of vein. The big differentiation is just the complete focus on one part of the topic, and like really diving deep into a specific category, which is HUD design itself. The approach, how I approach things, and just overall, just the way that I approach the problem solving and trying to get to making and teaching you like the process of making HUDs 100%. So it's mainly, the big difference is the primary focus, like how the differentiation between like something that's really broad and somewhat abstract, like the first class. Another big primary thing is that it's been years since the first class, and so I've learned how to teach a lot better. So my communication ability and my ability to get right to the source of what you need has gotten a lot faster. At least I think so. And then it's just like those things, and just also just kind of the process of building these things out. But it's highly much more specific. That's the key difference. So if you're wanting to learn specifically this kind of skill set and applying it to your overall career, that's really it too. So
Yep. I agree
yep, yep,
100%
yep.
with that. Next question is to Ryan. Someone says, please do Houdini 3D course next. We need your juice. All right, let's see what else was there.
You need that Houdini juice.
Houdini juice.
Squeeze it, dude.
I think the reminder. Let me see. Have you stumbled? Let's read this. Have you stumbled into issues when the team that hired you hadn't considered how the UX and UI would blend? For example, where you're asked to do like super FUI stuff, but their game actually required very little UI in the game. It's more of like an actual, I guess, workflow question, but I think the best way to answer this maybe would be just to tie it to, you know, what you guys are teaching and how potentially having that knowledge from the courses themselves can save you guys from, you know, having clashes with the clients like that.
Yeah, there's 100%. That's a good question too, because it's like a common thing. And for me, it's like, yeah, it's like kind of a no-brainer because I've been doing it for so long, but all of this really comes down to just solving problems. Design as a whole and defined to me is just like you're solving problems. And so what I'm trying to do here is like I'm giving you every solution that I can think of to any problem. And you can take these and you can go like, you know, because your question of like, you know, what if they want this and it's simplified? What if they want this, what's really complex? It doesn't really matter, honestly. You can use the same process. I'm basically giving you like all the ingredients and you just go, oh, well, today I want to make Chinese food. Well, then tomorrow I want to make Italian. Well, I gave you all the ingredients, so you can do whatever you want with it. It's your approach and how you approach that. And that's really the fundamental thing here is that these are just, you're solving problems. I'm trying to make it so that you're proficient and not only what buttons to push, but like how to think about how to solve these problems, like in a proficient way at a high level, like, you know, professional way. And then, you know, you find your solutions through it. And you're going to take all this stuff, you're going to learn it, and then you're going to go and you're working with your client, you're going to think about all these lessons that you've learned, and you're going to be able to apply it to those situations because you're going to go, oh, yeah, this was an interesting way of solving this problem. Or instead of going right into the computer, maybe I should sit there, write out all my information down on my paper or whatever, and then start to sketch out ideas, get my ideas going, think about what works, do some iterations, try those things out, and you're going to have a pipeline. And from there, I guarantee it, no matter if you work at Apple or if you work at Google or if you work at, you know, working on Call of Duty, any of those things, this system is going to work because it works for me, and it's going to definitely work for you if you take it and use it properly. So,
yeah. Ryan, do you want to add anything to that question?
Yeah, like I think that question does kind of tie into an important thread that runs through the course, and that is, you know, iteration of your project and setting things up in a way where you can get it off the ground quickly. You know, your project is clean, it's simple, and it's easy to modify. And I think that's really the key with a lot of this stuff because, you know, it is kind of hard to imagine something that's complex just in your head, and then, you know, everyone on the team is just coincidentally imagining exactly the same thing. You know, like you have to iterate, you have to get it out there, you have to get out some early renders that are maybe a little rough, and then everyone can kind of see it, and then you can sort of shape it together. And yeah, and like sometimes, you know, the design will get heavier, sometimes it'll get lighter, sometimes, you know, you kind of need to see something to realize it's not working, and you need to dramatically simplify it. And it's just all part of the process. And if you're kind of always setting your projects up in a way that they're, again, like easy to go back and tweak, you can open it up and just kind of look at your timeline and be like, all right, I see how this is set up here. This layer is influencing this one. They're linked to this effect. Here are my controls. You know, you're going to have a much easier time making those changes, making them quickly, keeping everyone on the same page and happy. And but yeah, it's a process, and it definitely helps to be prepared to iterate.
Yeah.
One more question that is related to courses, I think more specifically, is do you go over specific strategies for grid systems? I often find when I read about grids, the examples provided are mostly for the printed page versus a screen.
Yeah, 100%. It's like in using grid systems inside of After Effects, like I don't go super deep into theory and all that stuff. I just have a simple way that I approach it. And yeah, I approach that too, because all my designs come from a grid of some sort when it comes to doing stuff that has an order and a formation to it. And basically, if you're listening to the show, what the hell is he talking about? So grids is like, if you look at a design, it's all the invisible lines that kind of lead your eye through the process and things that feel clean. And like, I get comments on this all the time, like, hey, how do you keep your stuff like so clean or organized or whatever? The design has like a cool energy to it, or just there's a good flow to it. It's all what you're looking at, and what you don't know you're looking at is that I'm following a grid. And grid is just based on like mathematical points that live in a certain part of the, I don't know, how would you say, like the space, I guess, in which you're creating. So, but I do cover it, and it's a simple process. It's not really all that complex. Because I agree, when I like go through the books, I'm like, man, this is so whack. Again, it's like some person that's never really did it like in the career necessarily. Usually, like they're not necessarily designers, but like they're mathematicians, which is cool. It's just like, man, I can't. Like, I guess I could use this knowledge. I mean, you can use any knowledge at any point if you have the mindset for it, right? But I felt that same way. But the way that I work on it and use it is very simplified, and I teach it in here. So
Yeah, but why would you try to figure it out for yourself for next upcoming few years if you could take a course and learn it in an hour?
yeah, go for it. Have fun with it if you want to do it by yourself. I mean, honestly, another really crazy, funny thing is that so I went to college. I didn't go to like a crazy college, but I went to college, and I went to like a junior college and like a very unknown kind of college to get like your degree. And I remember it costing me like a lot of money, even though I was like broke and poor and I had financial aid all over the place, and I worked that as much as I could. It cost, I don't know, I can't remember the amount of money. It was like 40,000 or something like that. That was a lot of money to me back
Crazy
then.
amount of money.
Yeah.
For what
And
you
that's
get.
that's a really low amount too. And I was always, I gotta get a degree, this and that, because people are gonna ask me for a diploma and blah blah blah. It's such a joke. Anyways, I would have like if the value proposition here is insane, and I know like I'm not trying to sell it because I don't really care. You either take it or you don't. It's like if you want to be awesome and leapfrog, go for it. This is it. But I'm just talking about the value proposition. It's like insane. If I were to have take like if I was like, oh, I could take a year of this class, I wouldn't give two shits about it. It's going to cost me $10,000 and a bunch of time and gas and money and effort to go to this class and listen to this fucking jack off like tell me something I already know. Or I can take a class and learn from somebody that actually knows what they're talking about and like get applicable knowledge to myself. So, and you can get it for like so freaking cheap. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'll
So,
tell you this, and I agree
all
with
these
you.
classes, like what the heck, man? It's crazy.
I agree with you 100%. And it's sort of like coming back to time versus value, and time versus money. One of the things I've noticed over time is that the amount of content that is out there, you can watch hours on end of videos that explain nothing, and obviously it all varies also between what kind of software you learn and what kind of techniques you want to learn. Some of the approaches or some of the techniques for let's say specifically HUD or something else like animation or concept art, they all vary and they are all consuming different amount of time. But I found that almost has never been something that I pay attention to anymore, simply because you know it for yourself, Ash, too, right? Like when let's say you learn you've been learning Redshift and a bunch of other software. How different those software are, and one of them will take you an hour to learn and know like the bulletproof approaches on how to do things. The other one is just more technical or maybe more time consuming. It'll take you way more time as well, right? Like 3 or 4 hours to get the results that are being expected from using that specific workflow, right? But then the top layer on top of that is, okay, now which material that is out there is the right one, because you can take a class or take a lesson that it's an hour long that will teach you everything you need to know in the proper way, or you can take a lesson about the same subject. It's 4 hours and it's mumbling about nothing, you know?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make that specific distinction here. And I believe it was even a question
You like
there somewhere
either
too.
you either want to do this or you don't. You either want to be good and want to invest in yourself or you don't. Simple as that. I spend money all the time on myself, and I knew it was a hard thing at the beginning because I'd be like, man, I gotta take a risk, gotta spend all this money, blah blah blah. Even when I buy programs, I'm like, damn, am I gonna use this? Is it worth it? It is, because if you invest in yourself, it's like the best investment you could ever make.
Yeah,
It really is. So
it really is. If you put your time and effort into it, it just
yeah,
cannot
you'll
go
make
wrong.
you'll make it back so fast, like crazy.
Yeah,
Usually it's say you spend like, a couple $300 or whatever and take all these class. You have like 12 hours or 15 hours, whatever, of learning from us directly. And then you take that knowledge, you perfect your skills for a couple months and put out a portfolio and go get hired from somebody and like have a good income. It's like crazy. It literally can happen. I've seen it happen many times for my students. If that's what you're after, which is, I think that's what we're all after. We all want to have a career in this. We want to do this stuff for a living. It's what we care about. That's like, why beat around the bush? Why don't you get right to the source? Just make it happen, invest in yourself. So
there are a bunch of questions that are more, asking about your inspiration, stuff like that. But I think those questions, it would be better to address them like separately. Maybe make a podcast, different stream. Those are great questions. I just don't want to overload our time. I know you guys are busy. I also have something coming up very soon as well, so we'll have to wrap it up shortly. Ash, Ryan, do you have any final remarks you would wanna talk about?
Go for it, Ryan.
Yeah, I just I hope people enjoy the course. It's really exciting material. This is knowledge that I've accumulated over, a long period of time of just being out in the field and doing this stuff. I feel like it's some pretty tried and true material. I try to, keep things really, try to keep things native in After Effects, try to keep things close to the source. And again, like focusing on simple, but like rugged techniques that you can like really use for your own work while you're out there freelancing. And the course is very focused on After Effects. And, part of the logic behind that as well, something that I kind of wanted to mention earlier is that, when you're out there freelancing and you're doing this stuff, you never know which system you're going to work on. And when you're working on teams and you're trying to stay compatible with people, you don't always get to use the latest, greatest, flashiest plugin for stuff. Like sometimes you are forced to really simplify, use an older machine, use an older project, or format things in a way that's compatible with a workflow that somebody's already just locked into and has been for a long time. And hopefully like the skills that you take from this course are all things that are going to help you like through those types of situations where you have like this kind of like deeper, like kind of source level knowledge, a really strong foundation. You're able to kind of, look at these things and solve problems and figure out how you can take something that looks complex on the surface and break it down into these digestible pieces that can then fit back together to create something really cool and unique.
Yeah, great point too about that too, because that's a real common thing, and bringing these classes down to like the common denominator, So like if you're an advanced user and you're like, oh, you're teaching me stuff I already know, it's like, well, that's awesome, and I'll give you a high five next time I see you. But at the same time, it's like there's always somebody that can learn something about something that they already think they know. Mache could always learn a new trick in Photoshop. Like it sounds crazy, but he can. He's been using it for like 5,000 years because he's like so. There's Jesus Christ was born, then like you're the day after that, I think. So, and Photoshop was like
I was using it before it was invented.
Yeah, he was like using his head. But no, I mean, yeah, that's a general thing, and like being able to break things down to the core simplified like fashion. And again, I use food as a perfect example because we all know how it works. Is that literally like we're giving you all these ingredients. We're showing you how to have these taste for these things, and then what does what, how like to make Japanese food or different types of curry or whatever. It's the same kind of process with this too. It's like you can take all this knowledge and apply it to different situations. So you're not just having to repeat what we're doing. That's not the goal here. The goal isn't for you to repeat us. That's why the designs themselves look somewhat generic. It's to get you inspired to make your own things. And then take those things and apply it and build a life off of them if you want. Ryan and I have literally supported our families off of this platform that we're teaching you guys here.
One of your students actually chimed in with his IMDb page. Sanu. He took your
Yeah,
course
man.
in 2016. Now he's working in films. So there you
Good
go.
job, man. Good
Good
job,
job,
Sen.
brother.
It's amazing.
There was one more question I actually missed, and I think it's an important one for Ryan. Is there a list of plugins that it would be helpful to have ahead of jumping into your courses?
The course actually stays away from any particular plugins. It really sticks with native After Effects materials. Although, the stuff you learn in this course would absolutely apply to the popular plugins of the day. So,
Yeah.
obviously Plexus is something that you see all over the place, extremely popular. But, to effectively use it, you're definitely going to need to understand, the stuff going on in this course, or else it can be pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. And similar things go for the Trapcode suite as well. Like Form and Particular are both like really powerful, extremely useful plugins that can be very powerful for this type of stuff. But if you don't have a solid understanding of how After Effects works, how you can kind of optimize the look of things and control your animation using expressions and controls, you can get buried pretty quickly under the complexity of that. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah,
that makes
Which I
sense.
have
And
too, and everybody has. Yeah.
yeah, it makes absolute sense because, I've mentioned this already, I don't know how many times. Those two classes here, they lay like really, really freaking solid foundation that, it's all like literally all you need. You don't have to go into like complex plugins, spend absorbent amount of money into like different softwares. You can just use something that is simple enough and you learn foundation of it, and then once you start to understand the flow, how to think within the software, then any plugin that you might want to use, it will be just a no-brainer to pick it up. That applies to those
exactly.
classes, but also like anything I've learned in 3D as well. Like I could learn everything about V-Ray, everything about V-Ray. It would be useless if I wouldn't know what rendering is. And you need to learn rendering in the first place, what it does, like how it works, how you set it up, that kind of stuff. And rendering is pretty useless if you don't know anything about lighting and camera either. So
Yep.
you have to have that foundation, and then you jump into plugins and go from there. I think yeah, those two are great for that. All right, guys, we went
Yeah.
a little longer than an hour.
Just a little bit.
Expectedly because you both guys are here. That's been pretty packed stream, I believe.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Super excited about classes.
Excited to see what you guys make.
Yeah.
Like, super
Yeah,
pumped.
absolutely.
And
Share your success with us. I'd love that. Like, Sanu, that's amazing. Super
I
pumped for you.
believe we do have a waiting list somewhere on the side for future mentorships, but that's something we'll definitely let you guys know when it happens.
Yeah.
We'll definitely announce you have enough time to prepare and get ready for that.
A newsletter or something, right?
Yeah,
Like
newsletter. We blast it on social media. Like if you follow us on Instagram or Facebook, or if you are signed up for the
or MySpace,
newsletter,
right?
MySpace, yeah, Tinder, all of those places.
Oh, Tinder too? Damn.
And the Grinder.
Oh, Grindr too. Dude, pull that page up. Let's see
Yeah,
it.
dude.
See that
If you
profile
follow
pic.
us on social media, or you are signed up for the waiting for the mailing list, you will definitely know when it happens. You'll have enough time to prepare for that. So cool. Yeah, let's wrap it up here, guys. Ash, Ryan, thanks so much for coming on the stream, being here
Thank
to
you.
be
Thank you, man.
with our great freaking community.
Yeah.
And yeah, I cannot wait what's gonna happen next. I got a little extra news to announce. We're gonna have a new website this month. It's
Yeah.
coming in shortly.
Finally.
It's looking so fucking sick, dude.
Super juicy.
My God. It is. I think it's in beta testing right now, or it's the beta testing starts like really, really soon. We're gonna have some of our long students, or students that have been pretty long with us, to participate in that when they want to. I think Momo will have more information on that if he already didn't, on Discord pretty soon. But yeah, it looks pretty sick. Hopefully it's not, obviously it's we have to test for bugs and stuff like that. But we've listened to what you guys been saying about the website. We wanted to add some changes there. I think we revamped the homework uploader stuff as well in there. So, and the homework gallery is gonna look pretty sick too. So yeah, you've seen it. You know.
Yeah,
We
I
got the
know.
seal. We got the seal.
I'm
of
somewhat
approval.
familiar with it.
We got the seal
Somewhat.
of approval of someone who who had something to do with it too. So
Just slightly, yeah.
slightly.
Yeah, no, I'm super pumped for that because when I look at the current site, I'm like, man, where's that new site hotness, man?
Yeah,
So,
dude. It's gonna be awesome.
really beautiful. It's very modern. So.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Anyways, guys, thanks for joining us. Any future questions you have, remember you can always reach us over email.
Or ask your mom. Just tell your mom.
Ask your mom too. Tell your mom. If you run into any problems or issues, you know, we're here. Just email us, and we'll try to reply as soon as possible and make sure that the issues are resolved. We usually don't get many of those, but we try to be on top of anything. So, yeah, let's wrap it up,
Enjoy,
guys. Yep. Have a
great time.
Great time. Have fun learning new stuff from the class, and yeah, I will talk to you guys soon. We have a new class. We have one more class coming out this year. Later on, we'll talk about that a little later. So, all right, guys, take care.
Awesome. Peace
Peace
out,
out.
Talking
everybody.
to you.
Yep.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye.
All right.